I genuinely love to share the stories of inspirational people on this show, and my guest today is no exception. So, now with that being said, I want you to paint a picture in your mind's eye of an addict. What does that person look like? What types of places would you find that person in? I will guarantee you that this young lady looks nothing like the image you just created. In fact, she stands today as living proof that you can be a normal member of society, completely addicted to drugs and alcohol, and hide it all from the outside world. She's taken the lessons life has taught her and turned them into something positive with the creation of her blog, Erin's Inside Job, which features amazing content on everything from food to mental health. She's also a personal trainer and a new mom who recently celebrated her son's first birthday. I'm truly excited to bring you guys this episode, so let's dig in. Please welcome Erin Bahadur. Erin, welcome to the Jacked Up podcast. Glad to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh man, I tell you, I caught your podcast with, was it Willie you were with?
Yeah.
I listen to so many podcasts, it's hard to keep them all straight. And I actually just had Willie on my show here a week or two ago. And but I heard your episode with him and I was like, you know what? I need to reach out to her because she's got a really interesting story and I want to share it with all my listeners. So with that being said, why don't you get into just kind of give us the, I like to say the nickel tour or whatever. Give us your story.
Right. Okay. I will try to keep it concise because.
Oh, you're fine.
So a big part of my story is that I'm in recovery for drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. So I had a big problem with drinking and using pills, and then eventually it turned into heroin. And so from that, I started a blog and social media account and stuff like that because it will be 10 years ago in this May. So next month I'll have 10 years in recovery.
Wow, congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you. But at that time, it wasn't quite as rampant as it is now, or at least in the media and everything. Right. So I think a lot of people thought of addicts as people who were homeless or living under a bridge or, dregs of society. And I wanted to help kind of break that stereotype. So I wanted to kind of tell my story. And I think you hear a lot more often now about how the problem, especially with the opiate epidemic, has gotten into, suburbanites and, just everyone. It doesn't discriminate. So that's why I first came out and started talking about things. But I had a really normal childhood and I did really well in school. And I think I would be one of the last people that someone would think this would happen to. And so, I started drinking in college. I didn't really do anything before that. Like I said, I was really into school and played sports and stuff like that. And I started drinking in college. I kind of fell into the peer pressure to try some drugs. And then after that, it was kind of off to the races. And I knew deep inside that there was something different about the way that I drank and partied as opposed to normal college students. But I kind of kept pushing that under the rug and being I'm in college and this is what everyone does. But it's once I started drinking, I could not stop at all. I had to drink until I either passed out or it was time for bed. I couldn't just have some drinks and then stop and hang out for the rest of the night. So when I was in high school, I started working at a pharmacy as my part-time job. And then I ended up working there for about 8.5 years. So it was throughout college and then into grad school where I actually was going to school to be a pharmacist. So I got into pharmacy school. And just over all those years, there were kind of ups and downs, just periods where I would be really depressed and drink and try to do drugs, and then times when I felt fine. And so it was really kind of confusing. And as things got worse, I started taking drugs from the pharmacy where I worked because I was I need to think about I need to try every drug and I need to experience it. And what is this like? And so I started experimenting with all different kinds, and I was taking stimulants and the downers and and all that. And once I got to those opiates, I was like, oh, well, this is it. Like, this is my drug. Because, you know, they're like, they're depressants just like the alcohol is. So I was like, this is perfect. It's a perfect match. And those cause a lot of physical dependence. So you have to like continue taking them or you're going to go through withdrawals. And throughout this whole time, I was able to keep those lives very separate. So like family didn't know, friends didn't know. I was able to still succeed in school and do well. And like I said, get into grad school for this, all while that was still going on in the background. And so it got to a point where even if I had wanted to stop using them, I really couldn't, just because of the physical withdrawals, if I needed to like maintain these two separate lives that I had. And so I continued taking them and my tolerance got higher and I had to keep taking more and more. And when I moved out on my own to go to grad school, I continued to work there, but not as frequently. And so one of the times I wasn't there, the state came and did a surprise inspection of our inventory, which is a normal thing. They check how many like narcotics you've ordered versus how many you have on hand and make sure that they match up.
Right. Yep.
And I had become really adept at manipulating the computer system. So if you were just working there, it looked like everything, you know, was fine. All of our counts matched. And then when the state came, they were like, this is way off. Like, you guys have ordered way more than you have on hand and that you've dispensed. So they kind of looked into it and found that I was one of the ones who was working like every time this happened. And so they were told not to say anything to me the next time I came to work. So I had no idea about it. I went in, of course I take like an entire bottle because I'm not going to be working there as often. I got to stock up. And shortly after that, I went home and I got a call from the sheriff's office and they were like, hey, you know, we're investigating some thefts at the pharmacy. Can you come in and talk to us? And just my stomach just dropped and I was terrified. And of course I was like, oh yeah, sure. You know, I'll come in and talk to you. It's not me, but you know, let's talk about it. So I went up there the next day. I talked to them and he had ended up telling me that, you know, pretty much everything pointed to me and I kept denying it. And he said, you know, if you took anything, the amount that you took, it's not a lot. And so we'll just charge you with a misdemeanor if that's all that happened. Like it'll be theft under $100. You'll just get probation. So I did not know that police could lie to you. So
yes.
I did not know that. So I was like, oh, this is great. Then I can just kind of sweep it under the rug and then nobody will find out about this. So I met him, turned over the bottle, and then immediately had to turn over my keys to the pharmacy. And I thought that was the end of it. And I was like, okay, good. And not long after that, I got served these papers. A police officer came to my house and served me these papers that charged me with everything that was missing from the pharmacy, which was valid, of course. But I was like, this is absurd. I didn't do this. Like, it could have been this person and this person. So I kept denying it and kept only saying that I took what I had taken. And they were like, if you give us the names of people that they thought I was selling it to people because so much had been missing, and I wasn't at all. It was all just me. And so it was a mess. So I lost my job, obviously. And then I lost my income and I lost my access to free pain medication. So I found somewhere that I could buy it. It's extremely expensive if you just buy it on the street. And so I ran out of money pretty quickly and I was like, I can't keep doing this. And I had the bright idea to just drive to Baltimore. I was about 90 minutes outside of Baltimore. And I would just ask people where I could buy heroin because they're essentially the same thing, much cheaper. And I just drove up there and I just drove around and I was looking for people and I was like, that person looks sketchy. Let me just see if they know where I can get anything. So that became my life. And I was successful that way. And I found heroin and I started doing that. It was just really out of control. And I did it for about 2 months. And it was obviously an everyday thing, all day thing, that or drinking by myself in my apartment all the time. And I hadn't told the pharmacy school yet. So like they didn't know I had been arrested, and there was just so much going on emotionally with me, and I didn't know how to deal with it, that I just kept drinking and using drugs, trying to just escape everything. And so it finally, there just came a day where I like woke up and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's not where my life was meant to go. And there's like, I have to make a decision, like which way I want that life to go. And so I started calling rehabs. I was finally able to get into one, and I just drove there and I just broke down and I just lost it and was crying. I don't even really remember that much. I just know there was a lot of crying. And because I was living with all of this by myself. My family didn't know, my friends didn't know, like I said, so I still hadn't told anyone. And it was just miserable. So I got into the rehab. I started going there. At some point, I told my family, because obviously I was going to have to go to court, and I don't even really remember when that was. But they were surprised, and they were supportive, which I think is a really important piece of my recovery.
Absolutely.
I wasn't abandoned, and I didn't have to go do all this on my own. But I had about 3 months clean then, and I had to go to my sentencing, which I thought would be no big deal because I hadn't been in trouble. I had already started cleaning up my act, and they would just let me off and tell me not to do it again. And I went that morning. I kissed my dog goodbye. I told her I would see her later that afternoon. And when I got there, they threw the book at me, and I ended up being sentenced to 12 months. And I had to pay restitution and do community service. And then when I got out, I would be on 5 years supervised probation. And so I was immediately taken from the courtroom. I wasn't able to say bye to my family or my friends that came. I had some people from like the 12-step meetings came down with me and testified on my behalf. And I just wasn't able to say anything to anyone besides just turning around in the courtroom and being like, bye. So
see you later.
See ya. So I was immediately taken away, and I was just kind of in shock. And I ended up serving 9 of those 12 months. I got out on good behavior, and then got out, had to kind of rebuild my life, which was also difficult because the only job I had was working in that pharmacy. And now I legally was not allowed to work in the pharmacy. So I was trying to find other jobs. Like applying for jobs became my job. And I finally found somewhere that didn't do background checks. And I was able to get a job as a receptionist and kind of worked my way up from there. During that time, I met my now husband, and, we got together, moved in, still kept kind of working on my recovery. And then we got married, and his job brought me to Chicago, which is where I am now. And that's when I decided to kind of switch things up and get certified as a personal trainer and try to help other people live a healthier life.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you, obviously moving to Chicago was a big thing, because where were you from originally when all this other stuff happened? Oh, Maryland. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what, the opioids are pretty easy to find in Maryland. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's like I live in West Virginia, right in the Eastern Panhandle, and this is one of the worst places in the country, they say. It's because everything you've got the whole West Virginia, DC, Maryland, Pennsylvania. It's like one big cluster, and it's so easy to traffic all that stuff that it's just absolutely insane. So now, what was it that actually, was it from the physical aspect that you decided that you wanted to be a personal trainer? Did you have, I know you had the addiction issues and whatnot, but did you have like physical issues with weight or anything like that led you towards the fitness aspect of it?
So I didn't have any of those issues. I really enjoyed exercise in general. So like I said, I played sports and I was active when I wasn't in my active addiction, but I liked, exercising and going to the gym and that kind of stuff. And So what happened to me after I stopped using the drugs and drinking
Hmm.
was that my life was getting back on track. I felt really good. And I was like, you know what? I don't really need to go to as many meetings and focus on my recovery as much. Like, I got this. And pretty soon I found myself using exercise and food as like a new kind of drug, as
Right.
like a way to deal with being uncomfortable or any kind of negative emotions. It was something that I
Hmm.
could control.
Right.
And so I just substituted one for the other.
Yeah.
It's just the exercise and the food is a little more socially acceptable.
Hmm.
And but I knew, like, with my own thinking, that the way I was going about it was not healthy.
Right.
And I ended up like going way overboard with the exercise and cutting way back on the food.
Hmm.
And I actually ended up injuring myself. I was running and I just would run like 12 miles back to back days. And I had a stress fracture in my leg that it wouldn't hurt as much when I actually ran, only when I stopped running. So I was like, oh, I'll just keep running. And then one
Right.
day I wasn't able to put weight on it when I got out of bed. And I was like, all right, like, I have to do something about this now. So
Right.
I told people about it, and then I had to kind of approach it with the same kind of principles and mentality that I did with the drugs, and be like,
Hmm.
why am I doing it this way? How can I kind of find balance and change things? So I
Right.
found that part for myself, and then I wanted to help other people kind of approach health and fitness in like a healthier way. And
Yeah.
because for me, it became a lot about the external. And I was
Hmm.
like, the better that I can look on the outside and the more put together, the less people will know what's actually going on inside. And they
Right.
won't ask me and be like, what's wrong? And they'll be like, oh, you look great and in shape and awesome. And then
Hmm.
people would leave me alone while inside I was just miserable.
Right.
And so I think that happens, I don't know, to a lot of people, but definitely to some people. And so
Hmm.
I wanted people to come to me, and I would be able to share my experience going through that with them to
Yeah.
hopefully help that way.
And it's a really powerful thing that you realize that. And I have found this in my own journey. Now, backing up a little bit, you were with the issues that you have with alcohol. When
Yeah.
I was always a very, very big guy. I started going into bars and getting served here in West Virginia when I was 13 years old. And
Nice.
I drank like really, really heavy from the time I was
Yeah.
like 13, 14, up until I stopped drinking when I was 23, and I haven't had a drink since.
Wow.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, well, the day my oldest son was born, I said, "That's it, I'm done." But it was just one of those things that I personally have always had the ability that once I have that catalyst, once something happens that flips that switch in my head that says, "Okay, whatever's going on needs to be changed because this isn't a healthy avenue."
Yeah.
That was what allowed me to just walk away from the alcohol. And I wasn't the type of person that had to drink every day, but if I had one
Mhm.
beer, it was going to end badly.
Yeah.
That's just how I was. And I joke all the time where I grew up in West Virginia, other than like shooting pool and getting in bar fights, there wasn't a whole lot else to do. So it
Right.
was it
Yeah.
was just one of those things that it just was a destructive behavior. And fast forward 2007, and I had my aha moment with my health. It was the
Mhm.
same thing. I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't working anymore. It's time to change things. And
Mhm.
I always find it truly interesting when I'm talking to people like you, other trainers and whatnot. More often than not, trainers do have some sort of issue of some kind, whether it be with food or things of that nature that causes
Yeah.
them to want to get in this field. And
Mhm.
people don't realize bad food choices, not taking care of your health. That is just, the things that you do that are detrimental to your health in most cases are just as powerful as addiction as what you went through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
It
know.
is.
Yeah. So now how have you found that going through the addiction and everything, and now being a personal trainer, how have you found it easier to be able to relate to people and their addictions to food and things of that nature?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it gives me a lot more empathy. I
Hmm.
think I'm able to see kind of like warning signs in people that they may not be able to see in themselves.
Right.
And not that I would just go and straight up call them out, but, find a way to like,
Right.
work around it and kind of broach the subject a little bit. But I think given everything that I've been through, it gives me a lot of perspective. And I think that's really important, just to be able to meet people kind of where they are. I think without that, it can be hard to see like the whole picture, or even understand that those things kind of exist in other people. Like if you've never had those issues yourself, you may not even recognize them in someone, or you may not even really be aware of them. And so I think it just makes me like a better trainer in that aspect, because I can understand even like language and things that people may use.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like you hear people and you're talking to them and whatnot, and I personally, I get, before I even, give anybody their first macro. Okay. I spend a lot of time talking with them and trying to get in here, because I know that so much of what's going on inside can have that direct effect on what they're doing as far as nutrition wise and working out and things of that nature. And it's just kind of crazy when you get into it. Like one of the questions that I ask in my intake, and it always seems to give me the most information, is I ask them how much their family actually supports what it is that they're trying to do. And if they give me it's like a score of 1 to 10. And if they give me a lower score, once I start, like asking the questions, they say, ask somebody why 5 times, no matter what answer they give you, ask them why. And you dig down, you pull through those layers. And a lot of times something that's going on right there can actually be affecting everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have that support, it's going to be way harder to kind of turn things around and live a healthier life.
Yeah. And it's, and coaches like yourself and myself, and there's a number of them that I met. For every good coach out there, there's a bad coach, plain and simple. There are so many guys that are just like, and women too, they're just like, okay, well, you're going to sign up. I'm going to give you this diet because this diet is what works for all my clients, so it's going to work for you.
Right.
That is not true. Right. This workout is what I give all my clients. No, you can't do that, But it's crazy. But we live, I guess I kind of have a unique perspective. I was a mechanic for 20 years. And mechanics have got, and my mechanics have gotten a real bad rap too, because, you go to a mechanic, most people that take their car to a mechanic don't know anything about cars. They don't know how they work and things of that nature. Right. So you go there and the mechanic says, okay, well, you need this, 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 and this. And so many people were telling people they needed stuff that they didn't need just to make the money. And it's the same thing with coaching, unfortunately.
That's true. Yeah. And I was surprised when I got my certification, and it's something that I don't hear a lot of people talk of, that the certification is just a test. It's an online test, and you get a piece of paper, and it's like, okay, but then what do you do after that? Like I didn't feel comfortable training people. And I asked trainers that I knew, like, can I shadow you to see like how you do things and this kind of stuff? Because it's like you're not given any practical like experience, and so
no, you're not. It's all book learning when you get your certification.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I'm like, I wish they had like something more than that. But that's why there's such a variance in trainers, and like a lot of the ones that you find just working in like a gym, it's like, oh, you have to meet these sales quotas and just like get people to sign up and do whatever. So it's tough.
Yeah, my whole thing is I would never want to work in a gym. Not that I don't want to work with people one-on-one. There are people in my area that I do work with one-on-one, and I'll go to their gym and work with them. But my whole thing is I got into this because I want to help as many people as possible. And when you are essentially trading time for money, when you're, okay, I'm going to meet this many clients today, and you've only got so much time in the course of a day.
Right.
But when you do things, and that was why I got into the online space. That's why I started this podcast, because I could put a piece of content out there, and somebody's story like yours. I mean, I could release this podcast tomorrow and somebody watch it, and your story changed somebody else's life. And that's at the heart of it. At the heart of it, that's what I'm all about. And the thing that makes you, I don't even know your training style, but I can tell you the thing that makes you a good trainer is because you do have that empathy and you're 100% relatable, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, you are. I mean, and that's why when I heard your podcast with Willie and I started looking through your Instagram and your website and stuff like that, we are kind of kindred spirits because in 2007, I weighed 405 pounds and I almost died from a diabetic coma. I didn't know I was diabetic. And, then I just, boom, 6 to 7 hours in the hospital and all that stuff. My story makes me relatable. Your story and what you've been through makes you relatable. I don't know about you. I mean, I went to the gym a few times before I got into this whole thing. And I could never imagine, you see trainers in the gym and they're like 12% body fat and they look like they literally live in the parking lot of the gym in their car. And I'm not saying, I haven't never talked to them, so I don't really know, but I don't see that as being relatable to a 30-year-old mom or a 40-year-old dad. You know what I'm saying? It's people like us, people that have been in the trenches, so to speak, and have been from, I've had people on this podcast that weighed 500-600 pounds and have lost weight. And it's just amazing. Willie and what he's done. It's just one of those things that I truly have a passion for it. And I'm sensing that you do too.
Yeah. And I just think that so many people, especially women, tend to make it about the external and I just need to look this way. And I just think that life is so much more than that. And I think a lot of like personal trainers who, like you said, the 12% body fat or whatever, and who look that way, it's really hard to get like that. And it's often unattainable for most people unless you make that your life, unless you have the eating has to be like super strict and the exercise, and it's just not attainable for most people. And I think they're made to feel bad because like, oh, I can't look like that. And I think it's more like my approach is just trying to help people be healthier and move their body for more reasons than just like what it makes you look like. And to just give yourself a break. Like women are so hard on themselves, especially for what they eat. And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have that cookie, or like, I need to go on this diet. And it's like, just like, this is the life that you have. And like, if that makes you happy, like eat a cookie. It's like not the end of the world.
I tell people that all the time. It's like, we are human beings. And what good does it for us to try to improve our health if we're not living life? I actually, like midway through my journey, when I first found the gym, for the first 3 or 4 years, I ate like a bodybuilder. I trained like a bodybuilder. I lost a lot of weight. I was in my 40s and I still picked up, all told, about 30 pounds of muscle. But it's not sustainable, though. It's not. You can't live that lifestyle on a regular basis. And I have 5 kids, 2 grandkids, and we like to entertain. So when the kids come over, I'm a real big person for being out on the grill, and I'm gonna have hamburgers and hot dogs and potato chips and stuff like that. You've got to live, because it doesn't matter how you look in the mirror if you're not living life.
Exactly, and if you're not happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what would you think? Because you have been, you didn't really have a food addiction, but from what I'm gathering, but obviously you had the addiction issues. How would you say that relates to people that actually have food addictions?
Food addictions, like binge eating kind of food things, or
sometimes, Well, I mean, yourself. Some people have addictions to food where there's just certain types of food that they have to eat. They can't, like the ketogenic diet is really popular right now, and a lot of people are like, I can't do without my carb. I can't do without my carb. Scientifically, that's not true, but it's something that they have in their head. You know what I'm saying? And and that's what I'm saying. How would you relate that and the people's mindset around it compared to, I won't say the physical part of the addiction, because obviously that is in their head, but the mental aspect of it?
Yeah, I think I've actually been reading a bunch of books and just information on like not dieting and just how detrimental the term diet has been to us as like a society. And and it's just very damaging, I feel like. And I try to help people understand that like no food is like off limits. It's these diet terms and like rules and restrictions. I don't know if it makes people feel better to like have like they're controlling something, but it's just if you just eat like food, just like in inappropriate proportions, then then like there you go. And my whole thing with food was that I wasn't necessarily anorexic or bulimic, and I had more of like the orthorexia where I was like only eating the healthy food, and I would never have any sweets and sugar and like my husband at one point made a comment. I was eating a bunch of like dried fruit, and he was like, "Oh, isn't there like a lot of sugar in that?" And he didn't mean anything by it, but I was like, "Oh my God, like I'm eating all this sugar and I have to like not eat this." And so I just became very disordered and just preoccupied with food at all times. If we went out to eat, I would look at menus online and be like, what can I eat here? And it's really exhausting, and it takes up so much mental energy.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And just, I don't know, just trying to like shift people's mental perception of food, and that there's no like good or bad food. It's just like how you eat it in what proportions. If that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to tell people, think of food as fuel.
Right.
Okay? If you're driving around in a brand new BMW, I'm sure you're putting high test gasoline in your vehicle. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So you don't want to be putting lower, less quality gasoline in that vehicle. Same thing with like a race car. So that's how I kind of, I guess it's because I was a mechanic. I don't know, but that's just kind of it's kind of a metaphor that I use for it. And the main thing that I think that people need to stay away from is all the processed stuff. They do so much. They do so many things to process food that actually strips out the nutrients. That if people were to actually watch a documentary video on how like enriched flour is actually made and processed, they'd never touch white bread again. I mean, they really wouldn't, because it's kind of scary. And here a few weeks back, I had Vinnie Tortorich, who is the founder of NSNG, which is a dietary protocol, no sugar, no grains. He was actually a celebrity trainer back in the 90s. He's worked with people like Howie Mandel, and he's been on Oprah. He's been all over the place. Well, anyway, and one of the things that I was talking to him about was the fact that people don't understand the way that the food industry and things like that have actually skewed the view of a lot of foods. Like, I'm not sure how old you are, and I never ask a lady her age, but back years ago, there were some serious studies that were screwed up, and because of it, saturated fat got demonized. I mean, everybody was like, saturated fat will kill you, saturated fat will kill you. And it's not. Your body needs saturated fat. And Vinny actually put out this documentary, which is absolutely fabulous. I recommend anybody watch it that's listening to this. It's called Fat, a documentary. And when they drill down into the science of what happened, what went wrong, and what's right about everything now, if people knew and they could wrap their head around it, I think it would change a lot of things in today's culture when it comes to how people eat food.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like misinformation or just not enough information about things. And then it all just gets and then with social media, it can all just get like spewed everywhere, So.
And let me tell you, if somebody there's a lot of keyboard warriors around dieting. Let me tell you, I literally was tossed out of a Facebook group one time because, I'm a nutritionist. I'm all about food first and foremost. And this guy had put a post in there about how your body absolutely has to have carbohydrates. It's the only way it has energy. It's the only energy substrate that there is, glucose. And I'm like, dude, have you never heard of ketone bodies? Beta
Right.
hydroxybutyrate, these things your body makes and it uses for energy. And he just, I think it was like 5 minutes after I made that comment on his post, I literally got tossed out of the group.
You got kicked out.
I'm like, I don't understand.
man.
Social media is a very powerful thing. And you
It
you can get your message out there. You can talk to a lot of people, and there are a lot of benefits to it. But I'm going to tell you what, some people are just absolute fanatics out there. It's not.
It's true. And I mean, I think everything that you read on social media, you got to kind of take with a grain of salt, or at least do some investigation and be like, who's telling me this? And like, what are their credentials? And like, not just blindly like absorb information.
Right. Well, and that's what people don't get. Us as trainers, we're constantly learning. Especially good trainers, people that care about what they're doing, not somebody that just gets a certification, sets up a website, and there you go.
Exactly.
It's never going to stop. I'm 53 years old. I just got into this in the last 2 years. And, I'm probably going to continue to learn and evolve. And as more research comes out, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because sometimes you can read a research study and it's like, okay, well, that kind of contradicts 50 other studies, but we'll just kind of put a pin in that and come back to it,
Right.
So,
and that's why. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's why there's all those, like, why you're required to have like continuing education credits to like renew your certification. Because it's like, you can't just get a piece of paper and then be like, all right, I'm done and know everything. You have to continuously learn about it.
If somebody's sending you a picture saying, yeah, I've got this certification, look on the certification because there's an expiration date on it. And if you don't continue your education, and I don't care who you get it from, I think you're certified through NASM, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. And I got mine through ISSA, which they actually started at the same exact time, within like 3 months of each other. And they were the pioneers in it all. So, but there are now you can go online and like be a personal trainer, and there's like 60 different organizations that will take your money and 3 weeks later give you a piece of paper in the mail. It's nuts.
Right.
So that for the listeners out there, do your due diligence, do a little research before you go hiring any kind of coach, because it's your money you're giving away, but it's also you're going to be taking health advice from these people. So, I mean, do you want to just go to a quack doctor? I mean, I know I don't. I want to make sure that my doctor knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I wrote a post a couple of years ago that's on my blog that's like questions that you need to ask your personal trainer, because you go and meet a personal trainer and usually the trainer is asking you questions and then that's it. But it's like you should be asking them questions like the training style may not match up, and you need to ask if they're even certified, and all of these things that you should probably ask them before you guys are a good match.
Absolutely. And to be quite honest, I have known trainers that were very, very good at what they do that didn't have any certifications at all. Not saying that they didn't go to school for different things, but they didn't have a certification from NASM or ISSA or any of those. Made them no less qualified. I mean, I know a guy, I'm actually a resident coach in a Facebook group we just hit 30,000 members.
Nice.
And it's all about dads. It's actually called Dad Bod Transformation. Yeah. And it's neat because we have 4 resident coaches there, and between the 4 of us, we've got like 50 years experience. And if a client reaches out to one of us, and we're not a good fit for them, we'll say, hey, what I do, my training style, I don't think is going to be good for you. Let me send you to this guy because he's also a part of the group. And, that's more his wheelhouse. Like people that have type 2 diabetes and things of that nature, I always send them to me because that's my wheelhouse. And that's where I think myself, I think there needs to be you have networks of doctors and things of that nature. I think something needs to be done on more of a global level as far as creating some sort of network organization for trainers. So stuff like that can happen. Does that make sense?
Nice.
It would, because as a trainer, not only would obviously that would refer clients to you, but it's going to match clients with trainers that are going to be better able to help them, because at the end of the day, it's all about the client.
Right, for sure.
Plain and simple.
That's your next project.
Yes. Come on now. I got enough going on. I can't be doing that too. I don't know, but you got my wheels turning. We might have to talk. When the podcast is over, we'll talk. Maybe we can work something out. We'll figure something out. But yeah, I mean, especially now, I mean, look at everything that's going on now with this pandemic and the quarantine and all that stuff. And in the beginning when this all happened, there was so much misinformation that you didn't know what to do. And that's just now with this pandemic. In our industry, what we do, that's every day. For every person out there that'll tell you that, you should be doing A, B, and C, there are 100 other people out there that are trying to convince you another way to do it because they want your money.
It can be overwhelming if you're someone who's looking for a trainer or trying to just improve your health.
Yep, indeed. So now, being that we said that, what would your advice be to someone who's looking to get a trainer?
I would. That's a good question. I think, and probably you've experienced this as well, that building up an initial client base as a trainer is pretty difficult. But then, like, once you have that, then it's the referrals,
right,
that get you more clients and things like that. And so I think, like, as a person looking for a trainer, asking your friends or people that you know who work with trainers, like, do you have anyone that you can recommend, and things like that, because I feel like that's the most trusted source really in anything that gets, like, recommended to you, is someone that you know and that you can trust. And I mean, if you don't know anybody, then it becomes more difficult, because you're like, where do I start? Like, what do I do? Yeah. And you may just have to kind of start, I don't know, like seeing somebody at the gym, or like just looking online. There's actually in Chicago a website that it's called Right Fit Personal Training, and it's kind of what you had mentioned about, like, a database of trainers for people. And so I put myself on there as a trainer, and so the person who runs it then will get requests from people who are like, what do I do? How do I find a trainer? And then he will talk to them on the phone, and he knows all the people who have signed up for on his website, and he can find, like, the best match for people. And so that was really good for me and the clients, because I was just kind of starting out, and I was like, I don't know how to get clients very easily. And so he would kind of match the people with the trainers. And so that was really helpful. And obviously I know it doesn't exist everywhere, but maybe just kind of like looking up personal trainers, like, wherever you are. So it'd be like Personal Trainer Chicago or something like that. And then just kind of going through that process, which I think is kind of what you have to do with a lot of things, like finding a doctor, or like finding a therapist or something like that,
That's it. You just gave me the idea. In this 30 minutes or whatever that we've been talking, we need to create a national database registry, and be able to, clients can go on there and they can answer a series of questions, just like a dating app, so to speak. Swipe right, swipe left, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'm on a mission now. I got to figure this out. Okay. So now, let me ask you the last question that I always ask all my guests. If you could change one thing on a global level about health and fitness, what would it be?
I think, I know you even gave me time to think about this.
I did, and I don't normally do that. Normally I like to spring that on my guests, but I figured I'd be nice to you. You just celebrated your son's birthday, I didn't want to be too rough on you today.
Thank you. I think I may pick more than one answer, but I think either having it be more accessible, because I think sometimes a lot of people don't do it because they feel like it could be kind of cost prohibitive. So finding a way to like make everyone be able to afford it and have access to it.
Right.
And then another thing, I think more around the people who are looking to get healthy, is just to kind of take away the pressure. And like we've already talked about, like just find a way to make it okay for people to exercise and get healthy just for health's sake, and like not have it be so image based. And I think that a lot of that also comes from the trainers, is that it's like, oh, I look like this and now you can look like this. And just to like let people get healthy and just like be who they like, not try to change everything about them,
Right,
kind of
right,
thing.
right. You know what? You kind of gave me two answers there, and that's awesome
Yeah.
because both of them were spot on. They really were.
Yeah.
So many people need to get out of their head when it comes to all this. They get wrapped up in a lot of other ideas, and we've been talking about that throughout this podcast, where they make it all about more than what it is. At the end of the day, it's not about how you look. It's not about if you look like the person next to you. It's not all about what you wear when you go to the gym. It's not about any of that stuff.
Right.
It's about improving the quality of your life. I mean, I've told people many times, I want to live to be 100, but the only way I want to live to be 100 is if I have a good quality of life. When I hit 70, if my quality of life takes a dump, guess what? So's my motivation to want to be in this life. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, I've always been a very active person. I've had physical jobs my whole life where I work, long hours and things of that nature. And when I get to the point where I can't get up and go out in the fall and start splitting wood to get ready for wintertime and be able to open up my swimming pool every year so my grandkids can come over and swim and things like that. When I get to where I can't do stuff like that, I'm not going to be real happy. So that's why I'm on a mission to just keep going.
Exactly. And I think so when I was in my 20s or whatever, there wasn't a lot of practical reason. I mean, aside from me just being healthy, but it is a lot more image focused when you're younger. And then now that now I live in a city and I don't drive my car everywhere. And so I need to pick up my groceries. I need to carry them. I need to carry my son. I need to be able to just functionally be fit and healthy so that I can just succeed and live.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So any last thoughts, anything else that you want to touch on that we haven't already talked about?
I think one more thing actually that I thought of is that I think for a lot of people, it gets really daunting to think about kind of changing your lifestyle or trying to get healthier. And people think that they have to go from 0 to 100 or black and white. And it's I'm eating this way and I'm completely sedentary. And now I have to go to running 5 miles a day and then eating all vegetables and very healthy foods. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people fail because it's just too much. It's really overwhelming. So just kind of you as a trainer can help someone along in meeting them where they are and letting them know that it's okay to if you drink a giant frappuccino every morning, not to completely stop and go straight to black coffee because that's a huge shock to the system. It's hey, maybe take off the whipped cream for a little bit and then just incrementally make those changes in your life. And that makes it way more bearable to kind of shift into that healthier mindset and that healthier living.
Yep, I agree. And the key thing in all of it, in my view, is you're going to fail. And that's something that I tell all my clients, you are going to fail. You're going to have days where you eat things that you shouldn't eat. You're going to have days where you say, nope, I'm not going to the gym today, which right about now, that's everybody. But you are human and you're going to fail. And I'm not expecting you to be perfect, and you shouldn't expect yourself to be perfect either. But just realize that, education is key. And I believe as trainers, that is our job first and foremost, is to educate our client. Now, I feel that if I have to work with a client for more than a year, unless they've got some extreme issues going on, I haven't done my job. It shouldn't take me more than a year than to teach somebody the tools that they need to create a lifestyle that they can sustain that's healthy for them.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Because it's not about, I say that, but if you're in this field and it's all about the paycheck to you, then it's I'm probably going to catch some shit for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Planet Fitness giving pizza out on Fridays and having Tootsie Rolls there to eat, that lights a fire under me like you would not believe. I'm not a member, but I hear about all these things, and I just want to go in there and just grab somebody and just kind of smack them around a little bit. Because
yeah, my sister actually is a member just because it's the closest gym to her, and she's like, I don't want to go on like Monday, like whatever, the first Monday of the month or whatever, because the whole place smells like pizza. And like she told me like one guy came in and just like took a whole box of pizza out to his car,
and they don't say anything. They'll let you do it. They will let you take an entire pizza with you. You could do your workout when the workout's done. If you want to grab a pizza for the road,
right?
Sure.
It's a little. There's nothing wrong with pizza, but like to have the two in the same place it's weird.
Yeah. I guess you could call it market insurance. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's because you're right. There is nothing wrong. You know, fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with pizza. Right. Is it the best, healthiest food in the world for you? No. But if you eat it every now and then on occasion, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. I mean, trust me, every year at wrestling time, at WrestleMania, every year, I demolish an entire pizza by myself. Oh, I've been doing it for 30 years, and I'm going to continue to do it, you know. But yeah, it is. It's amazing. And I'm originally from New York, so it's like I know pizza. Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chicago's real good for pizza, from what I understand.
It is, but it's like it's a lot of deep dish, and you don't want to eat deep dish pizza like every day. You just need to have like regular pizza.
I don't like deep dish because for me, that limits the amount of pizza I can eat. Because if I'm going to eat pizza, I'm going to eat it. And if I eat a deep dish one, I'm going to get 2 or 3 pieces, and that's going to be it. And then I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, that's it. But it does have a lot of cheese, which is delicious, and I love. So like, but we only get it now when people visit, because like we've lived here for like 5.5 years now, and I'm like, I don't want it.
It was the same thing in New York. You just get burned out of it, and you don't want it anymore. All right, Erin. Well, I'm going to tell you what, this was absolutely amazing. Yeah, and I kind of figured it would be after listening to your episode with Willie. You are just, your personality just comes through, and I'm sure your clients just love you.
Thank you.
And but before we go, real quick, tell everybody where they can find you on social media and whatnot.
So I'm mainly on Instagram, and it is Erin's Inside Job. And then that's also the name of my blog. So it's erinsinsidejob.com. And I talk about all kinds of physical, mental, emotional health, like all of that, because I feel like it's not only the physical that needs attention. We need to take care of all those pieces to be like well-rounded and healthy.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, she just gave you all the information, so make sure you check her out. We've been planning this podcast for a week or so, and I did a lot of binging and read a lot of blog posts and went through Instagram. By the way, the boy's absolutely adorable. I just got to tell you.
He's ridiculous. So my people are like, how is he so cute? And my husband's Indian, so I say you just have to mix the races.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. He's got some eyes that could burn holes through solid steel. So let me tell you, when he's a teenager, take it from somebody whose youngest is 19, you're going to have your hands full.
I know.
All right, Erin. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. And anytime, if you've got anything new going on or whatever, and you want to get on here and talk about it, you know how to get in touch with me, and we'll do another one.
Will do. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. You have a great day. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of this video. I'm sure you did. If so, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to click the bell so you get notified when new episodes of the JAK'ed podcast land here on YouTube. Till I see you again, playtime's over. It's time to get to work.